Hello guys, welcome to my channel again. Please, if you're just joining us for the first time, make sure you click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification button so that anytime I post a video, you'll be the first to see it. So on today's episode, I'm going to be showing you how to set up a template. Now, template makes it easy for you to always just have something to fall back to when you want to do productions. You know, I know different projects come with different patterns, different genres, and different approach to the mixes and production, but there are basic things you need when you are doing production, especially when you're doing the gospel. There are basic things you need. For example, you need drums, you need pads, you need guitars, you need pianos, you need bass, you need strings. Now, so what we're going to be doing is just set up a template that can accommodate this at every time. So when you don't need the drums, you don't need to play the drums. When you don't need the guitars, you don't need to play the guitars. If it's just piano you already have them set up. You already have them in a template where you can just always have access to them. Then for your effects, like for the effects, for reverbs, delays, compression and everything, you set them up and just have them handy so that anytime you have a project to do, you just open your template, work. If you need to make changes, you make changes. If you don't need to make changes, you can keep them and just work with them. Then probably, reverb level for different genres are different for different genres. So if you are doing a genre that needs more reverb, you can increase the reverb. If you're doing a genre that needs less reverb, you can reduce the amount of the reverb. Or if you are doing a genre that requires a different reverb entirely, you can just add, not running everything from the beginning again. All right, so guys, let's go into it. Thank you guys. Okay, so guys, here's how to set up a template for yourself. So we're going back to Cubase. Like I always said, Cubase will always be my reference because I've used Cubase for more than 20 years, so I actually understand Cubase very well, and it's easy for me to, but the principle is the same. It's easy for me to use Cubase, but the principle is always the same. So let's go back to our empty prompt for project location. So let's start a new project. Remember, we'll always create folders to save whatsoever project we're doing. So let's do template. So template, click, select. Now remember, this guy will come with empty empty page. So everything is just empty, nothing is here. So let's assume how I set up my template is I start with the MIDI instrument. So number one on my list is always piano. So I always like to have a piano. Remember F11, so this is where we choose our sounds. So I always like to start with piano. So let's start with piano. I am in love with this synthage. So let's choose piano from this guy. So we are naming it piano. So let's set up a piano. This is a piano already. This guy comes originally with just this. Okay, so we choose a piano. So we have a piano already. So next I'm gonna choose an EP. So let's choose an EP. Let's come back to F11, choose an EP. So I have this guy, Omnisphere. So let's choose an electric piano from the Omnisphere. Okay, so we create Omnisphere. Okay, so we choose an electric piano. Keyscape library. Okay, so we choose an electric piano stage. I like this guy. So we choose an electric piano. Remember to always write the name, electric piano. So next we're going to choose pad. I'm using different. You can use the same. You can choose all your tones from the same source. Like from this montage, you can always choose everything. It has everything, but I'm just choosing for tutorial sake, so you can know that you have the option to choose from every other this thing. So next, I'm gonna choose pad from what's it called, Syntage. We're going to choose pad from Syntage. So let's get this contact. Why is it not opening now? Why are you slow? Okay, so this contact, we're going to choose Syntage. This is a little slow, maybe because of the Omnisphere and the other guy that is opened. So in using Omnisphere and these other guys, you need to know the strength of your computer, to be able to use them. Okay, so Syntage, here we have Syntage analog pad. So we're going to name this pad. We're going to name this pad, or you name it analog pad, whatever. So you can name it analog. Now, next thing I'm going to be doing is drums. Now, the same, from this guy where we chose piano, you can choose, decide to choose, what's it called, guitars. It has a lot of guitars. See them. These are guitars, acoustic, electric. If you want electric, you choose electric. You see them, plenty of them. If you want distortion guitars, see them, plenty. If you want synth guitars, see them, there are plenty. So like that. So the next thing we're going to be doing is to choose drums. I like for drums, I have preferences, right? I have plenty of options, but I like Perfect Drums. Perfect Drums gives me that gives me the energy of an acoustic drums. So we're going to choose Perfect Drums. They have plenty of options, so we're going to just choose number 2 just for the purpose of this tutorial. Now, once that is done, we have drums, so we just name this drums. Now, what else? We need guitars. I told you we can always use this guy for options for guitars, or if you have any plugins that has guitars, you can just add them. So let's assume we're adding something else for guitar. Let's say let's see, what do we use for guitar here? Let's see. Okay, I have ample guitar, so let's assume I'm using this guy, this ample guitar for guitar. Ample guitar. Okay, so let's assume we're using this guy for guitar. Okay, so we name this, just leave it as ample guitar. Then let's assume we're just done with all the instruments. We are done. The next thing we're going to be doing is to add audio track. Remember our audio track for vocal. So this is lead vocal. You can name this lead vocal. Then next thing is add more channels for backups. It depends on how many backups you do. So you can, for backups, you can decide to add as much channels as you want from this place, count, so we add 6 channels. Let's assume we're just doing 2 vocals. So we'll do this soprano, we'll do this alto, we'll do this tenor, Now let's assume we are done with adding. These are the numbers of basic instruments I use all the time. These are the numbers of basic channels you use all the time. If you need more, you can always add more, but let's just assume these are the basics. Next thing we need to do is to add a group channel, so that we can group all these things. We can put all these guys in a group, especially for the BGVs. So let's add group channels. Now add group. Now for this group, remember, it's always going to be stereo. Everything in this group must be stereo. So let's say we're creating 3 groups or 4 groups. 1 for drums, one for snare, no, one for the instruments, one for snare, one for toms, and one for BGVs. So we're doing 4 groups. So we have our 4 groups. So the first group will be for vocals, background vocals, or BGVs. Let's just put BGVs. Okay, background vocals. Background vocals. Okay, so this will be for the instruments. This will be for snare. I like to separate my snare from the whole instrument so that I can give it a different mix entirely. Then this is for, let's say, toms, because I like the toms to have a different mix from the general mix, the snare and the toms. Sometimes you can create group for kick. You know, you can create group for bass, you can create group for guitars. As much group as you can create, you have the liberty to create as much group, even if you want to create 100 groups. See them, you can create as much group as you want, you know. But for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to create just this. So now, how do we now assign these channels to the group? So for the BGVs, you can assign this guy, come to this place, stereo out routing, you route them to BGVs. The same thing, you repeat the same thing for all of them. You put the output, the stereo out to the BGVs, out to BGVs. You repeat the same thing for all of them. You repeat the same thing. Now that you have done this, you have routed everything. So when you solo the background vocals, you see that only the channels that are the tracks that are assigned to this, that are routed to this guy, is what is soloed. Do you understand? When you mute, the same thing. Do you understand? Now this gives you, creating a group gives you control over what happens to this guy. And because they are BGVs, I would always like all of them to have the same mix. That's the idea. All the BGVs will have the same mix. It's very important that they have the same mix, so that your BGVs will not be sounding from different rooms or from different mixes. All right, so once that is done, the instruments will now route the instruments. So let's go to F3, which is our mixer. Now, this mixer, remember we already created, what's it called? Some instruments. So on each of the instruments, you click on the edit. You now assign them to, this guy is instruments, so you assign to instruments. This guy is instruments, you assign to instruments. This guy too is instrument, you assign to instruments. So the ones you need to go to snare, you assign them to snare. You know, it's the same procedure. So once you've done all this and you are sure that you are okay with this template, what is the next thing to do? You are sure you're okay with this template. Okay, for some, you might want to use loop. So after creating this, you might create a loop channel, a channel where you can always bring stems, you can always bring loop or stems or whatever you want to use, or clicks, whatever you decide to use. But make sure your click channel or your loop channel is stereo. Make sure it's always stereo. So let's assume we're doing 1 and 2 for the loop. You know, you can always import. In the next class, I'll teach you how to import, how to export. But for this class, we're teaching you how to set up a template. Now, let's add this as our loop. Now, once this is done, the next thing you need to do is, you are satisfied with this. If you need to add FX channel, you can come right-click under here, come effects, add effect track. Now, this helps you. For this, let's just add the Valhalla reverb, you know, vintage verb. Now remember, when you're adding any effect, it must be stereo, must, except for special effects where you just want a particular effect and you want it mono, but most times let it be stereo. Then just add. Once you add, it will automatically create an effect group for you here. So any effect you add from now henceforth will just go under that effect group. So let's say we're changing the effect, we're using something else. No, not AB mono, no, AB stereo mono. So now when you add it, it will show you here. It's because it's already added to this effect group. Once you close it, any effect you add goes under this. Now, even this group, any group you add from now henceforth goes under this group folder. Now, once this is done, the next thing you want to do is to save this template so that anytime you have a project or you want to run a project, you don't need to come through this procedure again and start running everything, start adding one. It's time consuming. So let's go to our output and input before we do the final saving. Output and input. Remember, our output is 1 and 2, our input. So if you need to add multiple inputs, add the multiple input before you save. Now, what is the next thing we need to do? We need to save the template. So let's save this template. Now, come to File, go to File, you see Save as Template. Now, click this. It has brought you here. So we are going to save this template. What name should we give it? Let's give it tutorial template. Tutorial. I like my template to be in capital letters, right? Okay, so tutorial template. So once you do that, just say okay. It has saved it as your template. So if you close this, whether you save or you don't save, it has saved as your template. So let's not save. So with this, anytime you just wait for the Cubase to close. Anytime you want to start a new project, you don't need to run the procedures again. I'm just waiting for this guy to close. Okay, let's force it to close. All right. So let's run the Cubase again. Now, when you run this, you already save your template. So anytime you have a project to run, this is all you need to do. Now, see our template, tutorial template. You already have it here. So anytime you have a new project, you just come create. Remember, we always have to save the name. So let's say next. That's the title of the song you want to do. The title is next. So you just select. Once you select, you wait for it to come up. Now you see that it's up. You see that we have everything the way we set them earlier. You see? We have everything the way we set them in that template. So it's just for you to come, start running, start working. No need to start creating all these channels, all these groups and the effects again. You see, everything we created is here. Thank you guys for watching. God bless you. See you again in our next video. God bless you.